Hello, and welcome to the Strongwriting podcast, where we build our songwriting muscles together and bring more great music into the world. My name is Eyvindur, and I am your songwriting coach. Today, we're going to talk about self-doubt. I have a wonderful guest with me, a great singer-songwriter from Scotland, Rosie Bans. She's a podcast host, a champion of songwriters, a feminist. She's basically the Scottish version of me. Okay, maybe not. But we did get along very well, and we had a great talk. Rosie is committed to supporting the music industry becoming a place for people to truly thrive in. She's the founder of Be Radical, Make Music, a community for songwriters to safely explore their creativity together through workshops, song share sessions, and online courses. She's also a co-founder of SongSeeds Songwriting Retreats, providing affordable and accessible online songwriting camps to artists of all abilities, and serves on the Artists Advisory Board of UK music industry trade body, the FAC. In our talk, we dug deep into self-doubt, why songwriters seem to fall victim to it, and how to stop letting it get in the way of your creativity. If you've ever felt like self-doubt, lack of confidence, and negative inner monologue is holding you back, this conversation is going to be eye-opening. And even if you don't feel this is a problem for you, I challenge you to listen to the end, because Rosie has great advice to share for any songwriter. But before we begin, I want to encourage you to visit strongwriting.net, where you'll find a ton of free resources for songwriters, including my 28 Songs in 4 Weeks guide, which will help you become a much more prolific songwriter in no time. Are you tired of wasting time sitting around and waiting for inspiration to strike? Well, this free guide takes inspiration out of the equation by giving you simple, easy-to-follow songwriting prompts and challenging you to write one song per day for 4 weeks. Don't let writer's block stop you from writing killer songs. Take the bulls by the horn and just write. Get fantastic, tried and tested songwriting prompts for every day of the week for a total of 4 songwriting weeks. If you finish this challenge, you are guaranteed to emerge as a better songwriter. If you enjoy this podcast, please remember to subscribe, and if you leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, you will be helping me reach more people, and that is, of course, greatly appreciated. All right, let's get into my talk with Rosie Bans. Hello, and welcome, Rosie. I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your name when you asked me how to pronounce mine. Your last name, Bans?
Bans, yeah.
Bans. Rosie Bans. Welcome. Welcome. I'm not editing that out. Welcome to the Strongwriting podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, your journey in songwriting and life in general. Tell me everything.
Life. Well, I am from Scotland, from Glasgow, as you noticed on your own, which is always lovely, because quite often I get told I'm Irish and I'm actually in Scottish. I feel really bad when I tell people I'm not Irish. They look disappointed, but being Scottish is great. So yes, I am a singer-songwriter, a music producer, a musician, and I have been doing the music thing for almost 13 years now. I've been at it for a while. I also recently
Since you were 5? How
does
that work?
5, I just turned 34. Like
really?
2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was my birthday. It was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. So yes, music has been absolutely the central focus of my entire life. And I am so lucky to be able to say that. I am so aware that that's not normal. That's not always the way people come at it. And whatever chaos that the universe created when I popped out, I happened to get that lucky hand. So yeah, music's always been part of my life. And at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time doing podcasts. I have my own, and also helping songwriters get to a space in their life where music can be their priority and can be what drives their day-to-day life too.
Awesome. That's what it's all about. And I know a little bit of Scottish. I can say one line in Scottish.
Okay.
There's been a murder. There you go.
Love it. That's just high culture there. You just blew me away.
There you go. So I want to talk to you about self-doubt and consistency and things of that nature, because I absolutely I think what you said about working on, making music the focus art for your life is just such an important thing, and the more people can do that, the better. I always say I like to help people get more songs into the world, because music
Mm-hmm.
makes the world a better place, and we can make the world together. We can do that. We can make the world a better place one song at a time. But there is a question, like an example question that I saw on your profile, which is, why is feminism important in music and songwriting? And tell me that. I want to hear the answer to that question.
I'm just going to point out that you want a woman to tell you. Sorry, I'm not going to start a fight. I'm not starting a fight.
Well,
Actually, I'm glad you
no.
asked. I'm glad. By the way, I'm ripping the P. Um, it's okay. So I suppose, firstly, we've got to break that down. We've got to look at, what does feminism mean to you, and what does it mean to your listeners, whoever is listening out there. What does feminism mean? And I think for many people, the word can actually be quite a trigger. So if we take away the word and it's just a placeholder for me, for want of a better word, but for me, it means that people have a level playing field that they're on.
Mhm.
It means that no matter what your background is, what colour your skin is, what age you are, if you have a disability or not, that you can access the things that we can access in the more mainstream patriarchal side of society, right?
Mhm.
And there, just what you said, which was beautiful, about more songs makes a better world. I
Yeah.
fully agree. And I would like to add that more songs from different perspectives, from different
Yes.
people walking different paths, makes it much richer too. So that's what feminism means to me. And for the music industry in the UK anyway, unfortunately, like so many of these structures, like so many of these industries that really do thrive on exploitation, it
Mhm.
is exploiting groups that are oppressed, right? And so in the UK, I mean, there's this huge movement right now for feminism and for equality and for
Yeah.
gender equality and gender understanding. So I think just in the music industry alone, though, it does mean allowing those people whose voices have been silenced over the decades, over the centuries, to have a platform that feels safe for them to be able to actually say, I have something to say and I think it's worth hearing. So yeah, I think that's what I mean. I think that's what I mean today about
Yeah.
feminism, because I also call myself a feminist in training. Like, I know there's so much more for me to do, and I know that I'm definitely in some manner oppressing someone somewhere else by being blind to something. And I'm constantly trying to have these kind of conversations and open up that dialogue to understand more myself as well. But right now in my life and career and my activism, that's what it means to me.
I love that. And I love that point where what you said about, we're not aware of our privilege, and usually, I mean, I'm very aware of mine. I'm I I don't know if I could be more privileged, but anyway. But it's so easy to forget that there are people with different experiences who we don't know. We don't know what they're going through. I freely admit that I'm ignorant to a lot of things. For instance, with trans people, that's like far removed from my experience. And I think what you just said, just being open and listening, is such an important thing.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
sort of an aside, but I want to say, if people are triggered by the word feminism, I think that's just approaching things from the wrong. And if the word is what bothers you, then you might want to think about it a little bit more, because it's to me, it's the same as when people responded to Black Lives Matter by saying all lives matter. It's not the words, that's not the point, it's the meaning behind them. And that to me is, feminism. I think the literal that definition, or the official definition, it works perfectly well. There's equality has not between the genders has not been reached, and therefore it's feminism, because usually it's women who need to fight.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I love that, but we wanted to talk about self-doubt, and we both got into it a little bit there, saying we're probably not aware of certain things around us. So where does this I think we all do it. We all beat ourselves down. We all doubt ourselves. Why do we do it?
Why do we do it? Massive question, right? And I'll take it from my perspective and my experience and what I believe. And I think feminism has a big part to play in this. I think the flip side of feminism, i.e. the patriarchy, the capitalist system that we have to live in, there's no getting away from it. We live in the West.
Yeah.
Self-doubt, I think there's so much messaging that comes at you subliminally and obviously too at times. We're so used to it. And this idea of not being enough, of not being good enough, which, I mean, we even have a concept called perfectionism, right? That is the biggest myth that we've all been fed. And if you believe in perfectionism as an idea, then essentially that means that you're always going to be striving to be more than you ever can be. And for a creative and a songwriting capacity, I feel like this striving towards perfectionism, and perfectionism is this, I've got this image in my head of a big gnarly graveyard where all your creative dreams go to die.
Yeah.
And when you get to you're never going to get to that graveyard, which is a good thing actually. But if perfectionism was a place in my head, instead of what it was when I was younger, which was this rich and successful and gorgeous, and my boobs are 5 times the size than they really are, and all of a sudden my wonky eye's not wonky, and that's perfectionism. But now I have this image in my head of it being this desolate, dead, creatively barren graveyard. And that shift took a really long time for me to make. And for me, I'm a very visual person. It has to be an image. And so for your listeners as well, for thinking about self-doubt, when you put it in that context of being fed a lie your entire life from the moment you're born. I mean, people even do this to children. They even put it in, they do it to kids, having the perfect child. How should your child behave, And it's no one's fault. I'm not blaming a parent here in any way, shape or form. It's just a really billions and billions of pounds, billions of dollars are being pumped into this system to make you feel like you're not good enough. Because when you feel like that, when you're not self-actualized, you're quiet. You don't kick up a fuss. You get on with your work. You're a vet. You're a good, you're a good work. What do you call it? Like, in the workhouses, like Victorian England, like Victorian UK, where all that came from. And so I think that's where self-doubt starts creeping in. And so I like to equip people with or invite them to consider an alternative, which is a lot of these narratives that you have in your head about not being good enough and therefore doubting whether you can do X, Y, Z. That a lot of them don't come from you initially. They come from all of this messaging. And I don't want to sit and fully say it's society's fault. Can I swear on this podcast, by the way? Almost
Sure,
swore there.
yeah. Why not?
But I won't. It's fine. I won't unleash the Glaswegian quite yet. But yeah, it's that idea of saying, okay, well, there is a lot of this that isn't mine's, and I can unpack, I can take it out of the backpack. But there is a lot of stuff then that you can do, and you can change, and you can take some action, and you do have a lot more power than you've been led to believe a lot of the time. So I think that's, for me anyway, in my life, I identified that a lot of this stuff isn't mine's. And I want to spend as much time as I can shedding those layers that have been put onto me, that weight, that heaviness that says that I'm never going to be perfect, therefore I'm never going to be worth anything, I'm never going to have that value, I'm never going to be good enough. And instead I like to hold 2 fingers up to it and say, I'm beautifully flawed. This is perfection. you know, and there's so much beauty in everything that we're doing all the time, regardless of music or songwriting. I know we're here to talk about songs, but
Sure.
there's beauty in everything in this world. But yeah, there's a lot of money and there's a lot of people that make a lot of money from you believing otherwise, and it's sometimes I forget that it's real life. And I think, oh, that was a horrible dystopian thought that I had, and I think, oh no, wait, that was real life. So but yes, in music though, I don't want to seem doom and gloom and like this is how it's going to be forever, because I do think there's so many cracks in it.
Yeah.
There's so many cracks in that wall, and that's where your art can live. And when you grow your art in a crack, the crack gets bigger and bigger and almost becomes this huge gaping hole that now your art can live inside. And then you can see other people come through the hole in the wall that I've just made, you know. So there is a positive side to it all.
Yeah. You know that great Leonard Cohen quote, there is a crack in everything, and that's where the light gets in.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And you know, and to your point, it's even worse now with social media. You get all of these influencers everywhere with this perfect image, and you constantly, you're supposed to be comparing yourself to all these people who are showing us a very small side of themselves, and it's just you know, it feels awful, and it's so easy to feel inadequate. And just to tell you a little story, for me, it got so bad, you know, perfectionism. I was so bad. I was writing all this music. I had so much stuff. I write very fast, so I had this massive catalog of songs, and it took me 10 years to put a solo album together, because it was always no, it needs to be perfect. I need to do it. I need to, like, probably, and then eventually it's certainly not perfect. It's very far from perfect, but I finally just got it together to say, okay, this is, you know, I'm wasting my life on this self-doubt crap, and I need to just get it out there.
Yeah.
You know, and so what you know, I know some of what I did and what I do now. I have my own methods of dealing with this stuff, but what do you recommend? I mean, how do you deal with it for people out there who are stuck in this loop of doubt and perfectionism? How do you
Mm.
get out of it?
I think firstly, you need to accept it, that that's what's going on right now for you in this moment, and feel the resistance against it, because it's a horrible feeling, isn't it? It's horrible, like
It's
stuck
absolutely.
in that space. So I think the first thing is to actually say, oh, I'm really struggling with my self-confidence and my self-doubt, and appreciating that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to therapy. I got loads of therapy. I got 5 years of therapy. My therapist had to basically throw me out and say, I think you're going to need therapy. Stop therapy. So I thankfully managed to leave. But that
Therapy rehab.
exactly right. And that really helped me. Now, and that's not why I was there. I was there for totally different reasons. But as you do, you go on that journey. So I would say if you're really struggling to the point where you're feeling like it's becoming intrusive into your life and your relationships, your job, your happiness, going and talking to a professional if you can. If you can find an affordable means to do that. There's these websites and things now too. You can go and find someone online.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, other ways that really massively work for me is community. It's finding other folk, like podcasts like this. I mean, you can think of community as the people around you in person, of course, but also you can consider the community like the people you follow online. Like you talked about influencers and things there, you know, like you can curate that for yourself, listening to podcasts like this. And once you get into a community with other musicians and other people who are in a very similar path to you, and you actually open up and take that's the first, so really hard but very brave step, is to open up and say to someone, I'm really struggling with this. It becomes apparent really quickly that the majority of people do at some point, at least some point in their life. So I would say, to get out of it, I would reframe that in your mind if you're struggling with that right now, and consider accepting it first. Consider saying, okay, I'm alive today. The time is going to pass, so I'm going to sit here and just try and feel my feelings. And I know that's such a cliche, and I put it on a t-shirt, but
Yeah.
and I'm saying it like it's easy, and I'm so aware how difficult that is, how
Yeah.
difficult it can be. But if you can get to just over that first hurdle of saying, no, this is how I'm feeling. Maybe you don't know why, and that's okay. But as long as you initially accept, okay, this is where I'm at. Because I think so much of our time is spent like pushing away feeling, and we take up so much energy to do so. When you do kind of let it sit and it feels horrible and uncomfortable, and you have a cry or you punch a pillow or you scream or whatever it is you need to do, there is a release in that moment. There is that's when the fog kind of dissipates and the doors are now a little bit more obvious to you. But it is every individual's own journey for sure. We share more than we have apart. We have more in common than we have apart. But at the same time, no one else can walk your path for you. Only you can do that. It's kind of like, I kind of think of it as a really like cursed irony of like it's such a wonderful thing, right? Being here and getting to do music and all that stuff. And you grow up as a kid and like all this stuff gets given to you when you're young. You don't ask for it. And maybe it causes some pain when you're an adult. But someone else could have given you that, but then you're the only one. You're the only one that can change it. And there's something deeply ironic, but there's like Robert Anton Wilson, author and philosopher, and talks about like ayahuasca and all that kind of stuff. But he calls it the cosmic giggle, as if the universe is always laughing at you. You're taking something really seriously and you're really struggling, and there's this kind of idea that the universe is just patting you on the head like a child, being like, "Oh,
there."
They're there, silly little human thing." And I'm not minimizing anyone's experience by saying that.
No.
It's just that irony of, you have to walk that yourself, but you can do it with friends and you can do it with community. So I suppose those are the three things I would say: is accepting it, asking for professional help if you feel like that's what you're needing, and not feeling ashamed about that in any way. And then finding a community of like-minded people that you can open up to. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to pour your heart out to a stranger on the internet. I don't really suggest you do that, but finding people that you can, apart from podcasters, we signed up for it, right? But
I've struggled with anxiety and depression most of my life, and I've done my fair share of therapy. And I went through kind of like a burnout situation, and my therapist, going back to your point about running away from your emotions instead of just sitting there and feeling them. One of the things that caused me the most anxiety was when I felt an anxiety attack coming on. It would like go from a mild anxiety attack to a full-blown panic attack because I got so worried and I wanted to run away from that feeling. And he was like, but why? Just you should just feel it, because if you're avoiding it, then it's like a phobia. It's like, if you're afraid of a dog and you cross the street every time you see a dog, then you'll never get over your phobia. But if you just, desensitize yourself to it and get used to being around dogs, then you'll be fine. So just get used to feeling those feelings, and then they won't be as bad, because you will get those feelings. We all get negative feelings. We get sad, we get anxious, we get all these things. And if we try to run away from them, then they get worse. And he set me an assignment. He said, the next time you feel an anxiety attack, like a panic attack coming on, try making it the worst one you've ever had. Because no one's ever died of a panic attack. That's not possible. So just make that an experiment. Try to get the worst panic attack you've ever had. That was 3 years ago, and I haven't had a panic attack since.
Wow.
Because I tried it, and it was like a magic trick. Like, I feel one coming on. I'm going to try it now, and whoop, it went away.
That's it. Because you're finally actually really focusing on it instead of pushing it away like you're saying. Absolutely.
It was just literally sitting and like thinking, how is this actually, what's the physical sensation? What's happening in my brain right now?
Mm,
And, focusing on it, it's like the boogeyman, under your bed. When you
mm.
look under the bed, he's gone.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's it. I mean, it's so difficult to do, isn't it? But
Hmm.
when you do get to that stage of really being able to face those things, and when you can do it, you do feel the power that you have, for sure. There's a lot of things that you can do that can help. And I
Yeah.
know for some people it's more clinical and they need help and they go down the medication route, and that's absolutely great and fine if that's what you need. I think
Yeah.
for a lot of people too, myself included, I've also suffered from anxiety and depression most of my life as well. And my therapist, I think I don't work well with intensity though, although I'm a pretty intense person at times. But so that wouldn't quite work for me. But instead, I do the surrender thing when I have a panic attack,
Yeah.
and I now see it as my body has this superpower to protect me and to
Yeah.
alert me that something's a bit too much, or to alert me, it's like my little red warning signal. Oh, you're almost going to go over the edge. And there's something about that I've grown to kind of love, in a way that, oh, my body does this thing. My mind is constantly looking after me, that I'm never really alone. I'm never
Yeah.
really, I'm not going to do those things that push me too far, because I know my mind is just going to kick in. And my panic attacks have been a lot less. Although I wish I could say I've not had one in the last 3 years, but
I've had
they're
anxiety
always
attacks.
mm,
I have
mhm.
had anxiety attacks, but no full-blown panic attacks.
Full blown, yeah, like stop you in your
Like
tracks.
being immobile, sitting and hyperventilating
Yeah.
for no apparent reason. That has not
Yes.
happened
Yeah.
in a few years.
That's good, man. I'm very happy here. It's exhausting as well, isn't it? It's exhausting.
Yeah,
Oh, burning
it
calories.
is.
It's not a good way to think about it.
I I don't know what it is, and well, and I'm fascinated by this. I've given talks on like creativity and mental health,
Mm.
but there's something that, and I think it's like part of our, like you said, it's like a superpower. I have a feeling because I don't think I know any creative person who doesn't struggle with some form of depression, anxiety, or in some cases like more serious issues like bipolar disorder or something like that.
Yeah.
And so maybe creativity is a form of madness. Who knows?
What comes first? What one comes first? The madness or the creativity?
Yeah, yeah. The chicken and the
That's
egg.
it. I also think, though, that creative people tend to be, well, we talk a lot about our experiences, right? Because we're
Yeah,
essentially documenting our experience of the world.
yeah,
And I used to consider it as, like, Harry Potter, and you've got the muggles who aren't
yeah,
musicians and aren't creative people.
yeah, yeah.
When I was younger, because I was cocky and I thought I knew everything, I thought, oh, they're muggles. Those people who don't do music. And then the older I've got, the more I realize, oh no, wait, we are the normal ones. We are
Yeah,
the not saying the wizards aren't normal. Wizards are great, but
yeah.
we are like,
The
I think we
Muggles.
are the majority. And I
Yeah,
actually think the people who are, the kind of, I don't want to say something that's going to super offend anyone, because this is all just my opinion that no one asked for. But I think the folk who push away creativity and who consider it's a waste of time, I think they're the ones that don't see the magic. They're the ones
yeah.
that don't see it, and it's all available to every human being. I think just creative people have opened up to it and have decided to welcome it into their life in a big way. So my thinking's changed on that one now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although, I mean, to be fair, I think we're all creative. I mean, it's like that's
exactly.
what makes us human is the
Exactly.
ability to create things in our head.
Mm,
Like that, to me, if I was to define, yeah, you can say thumbs or you can say language or civilization or whatever. But I think the one defining human thing that makes us different from other animals is that we can imagine things that have never existed
yep,
and make them a reality. And
absolutely.
that to me is magic.
Cool, isn't it? It's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, and we're relatively unique in that. I think There's some study or something I read about with ravens and rooks, like crows,
Yeah.
and how they put like an obstacle course in front of them to get some food. And the crow fashioned their own little instruments and, took a stick and kind of like banged it off a thing. And anyway, it just went to prove that perhaps there are other animals in the animal kingdom that do have this like critical thinking and can imagine, like a
Right.
logistical way through. But I mean, that's
That's
one
problem
thing, but
solving.
problem solving, yeah, but having to use creativity to problem solve, having to say, well, if I turned that around and I actually pushed it on the top, then that'll put, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah, but that's problem solving. But we humans, we tell stories. Like we make up stories, and that's actually like a defense mechanism. From at least that's the theory that I've read, is that like back when we were in like cavemen, we'd make up stories about dangerous things so that we could learn from experience without actually experiencing them.
Yeah.
So we'd learn about the dangers of the world without dying in the process.
Yeah.
And so stories are like an evolutionary thing, and our imagination is an evolutionary thing that enables us to create these worlds. We can create entire universes in our heads,
Yeah.
and people do every day, and it's
All the
amazing.
time. Yeah, absolutely.
And not just to solve a problem, but to enjoy ourselves and to entertain others and make other people happy, and that's wonderful.
And that ultimate question, our own existence. Why are we here? What's out there, and all of that. That's awesome in the actual true meaning of the word, right? Awesome. And human beings are they're incredible. I think we're amazing. We can do a lot of mad stuff, but down with the creativity, it's like, wow, you've got so much going on inside you. And if that self-doubt is holding you back a little bit from it, it's like a dam though, right? The pressure's building. And whenever you're ready to be creative and let it all out, wow, it's just, it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the, we get these blocks, right? And I think there are probably some blockages that are more common than others. And can you talk a little bit about that, like the things that block us creatively, and how we can get around them?
Absolutely, yeah. I think first and foremost, something that's not talked about often is your general well-being as well.
Yeah.
To be well fed, to have enough water, to sleep, and to understand that if you're really creatively blocked, that your creativity in your mind, your creative artist inside is also attached to your physicality and your sense of well-being. And I know in the times where I've suffered any kind of dip or block, where maybe my mental health has been quite low, my physical health has also kind of followed suit. So the first thing I like to do is, if I ever feel any of that coming on, is move really deeply into a space of like self-exploration and saying, what's going on? Why am I not eating well? Why am I drinking too much? And we all go through these phases. So I'd say that's kind of one of the first places to look is your actual kind of fundamental physicality. Like, are you going out? Have you been in nature any time recently? Or are you stuck in the house? Or is it really stressful at work? Have you got a lot of pressure on you right now? And if the answer to those things...
Is there a worldwide pandemic?
Is there a pandemic? Exactly. Absolutely. Is there, quite literally just things going on fire around you, depending on where you are. So I'd say that's the first place to look, and look at, is there a way you can either remove yourself from situations, or is there a way you can somehow, again, share it with a loved one? And I've been really neglecting my health recently. Can we make a deal with each other to, have like whatever it is for you, go out running together, or to just check in with each other, whatever that is, or join a challenge online. There's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's always the first place I look at for sure. I say, okay, well, what's actually going on the fundamental side? And then when I'm and when I'm talking to other people too about blocks, I think the language is interesting and the language is important, because when we tell ourselves something, we tend to believe it. So if we say, I am blocked, then you might actually be creating more of a barrier between you and your creativity than needed to be. And so instead, I like to consider our life in these phases. So a block assumes that there's a free flow constantly. And for me, creativity isn't like that. For me, creativity is more like a cycle, like an ecosystem, like the winter, the summer, the spring, and the autumn. And sometimes my tree is bare and I don't have any fruit. And sometimes the sun is shining, And so I'd say the next thing is to look at where in the season are you of your life, of your year, of your month, whatever that is. And appreciate that sometimes you're not going to create as much as you want, and sometimes that you will. Amanda Palmer had this, I don't know where she said it. I can't remember. And I think she was referencing someone else, but she spoke about having inhale years and exhale years. So,
oh, wow. I love that.
Right. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. I love Amanda Palmer.
I know. She's great. She's one of my,
Amazing.
She's one of my top ladies. And the inhale years being, where you're not creating too much, but you're growing somehow else. There's it's you're reading or you're just thinking a lot. It's okay. Going back to your ancestors in the cave, they probably just sat about loads, just thinking about stuff, making watching, a thing here, listening. There, just imagining and probably having a lot of sex to get past the day. But still, probably. I mean,
that's not a bad thing.
And then the exhale years, like when you go on tour or you write that album, you get it done and you've got to promote it all and all that stuff. So just considering where you are and try to rethink your creativity less like a straight line, less like a constant flow, like the river is running wild. And instead, sometimes it's just a small trickle, and there's not much to fill up your cup with. So maybe look elsewhere, again, coming back to where else in your life can you fill up and feel healthy and feel strong and just feel happy about it. There's another great analogy. Again, I need to write down my sources. This is really bad, but I didn't make this up. It was like your life is like a gas cooker and you've got 4 hobs. And each hob represents some kind of like slice of your life, your family, your work, your creativity, your friendships. But you don't have enough gas in the tank to have all hobs on all the time at full blast. And so it's almost like you're balancing the pots, you're okay, what can I turn down? What can I turn up? And seeing your life like that, because when I think about it like that, I've got the power again. It's not been given away. Like I should be writing all the time, or I should never feel this block. And instead, if I'm feeling blocked, it's like, okay, maybe that hob is just low. So I'm going to just pour my energy either into something else or back into myself. So that would be the first place I go for sure, because I don't know if writer's block in and of itself is a thing. Does that make sense? Like
I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a thing.
Exactly. So I try and watch my language around it, but particularly if I'm talking to myself. I'm going to believe myself. So there's that. And then on the other side of it, if you're really got some energy, say like, I want to get over this. This is really doing my head in, and I feel healthy and I feel like things are going good, but I just can't get past it. That's where I would definitely start employing songwriting techniques, exercises, tools, looking at creating some kind of structure or framework for yourself to flow along with. And I run a lot of like 5-day challenges and those kind of really structured spaces where you get 2 things. The first thing you get is a community just there. You just show up and everyone starts talking to each other, and it's really wonderful to see these strangers become friends. And the second thing you get is structured and focused time and structured and focused tasks to do. And you get a wee tiny bit of time pressure, which means your perfectionism needs to get put on the side. It means that you just got to write the song because you've only really got an hour to do it. And it's fun. And it reminds you that this stuff is meant to be fun, that we're not going to get out of none of us get out of this alive. So whilst we are here, it's to remind yourself that music can be playful and kind of should be, and
Yeah.
there's a childlike fun to it. So that would be kind of the next place I look is, okay, get some structure, get some support, plug yourself into the matrix,
Yeah.
don't be alone in that space. And sometimes that's all it takes.
Yep.
Someone's go, oh my God, I've started writing again after, and I'm actually thinking about people who literally said this recently after the last 5-day challenge I done was, I mean, someone said that they lost a child and they hadn't written anything since that happened. And on that challenge, it all just came out, and we were all crying on a Zoom call on the
Yeah.
internet, streaming live on Facebook. It was beautiful. It was so, so beautiful. And to say, wow, there's a real power in other people just being part of your journey. So let them in and let them soothe you, and, allow yourself to be taken along. And before you know it, the river will be running again. You will be
Yeah.
back in that phase of your life, but don't cling on to it too much,
Yeah.
because there might be another time, where you've got to reassess. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think in my, I kind of, I don't disagree, but I frame it a little bit differently because yes, there is an ebb and a flow, but to me, it's not the creativity that's an ebb and a flow. It's the energy. It's the, like you said, like the priorities. Sometimes you do need to spend more time on like even within the creative process. You have the creation, and then there's recording your music, and then there's releasing it, and that is a whole different. You need to be in a whole different mode.
Yeah.
But to me, creativity is like a mine. I always think of it as a mine,
Mm.
and I go down into the mine, and or either that or fishing spots.
Mm.
I like that analogy too, where it's like, if you know where the fish are, and if you know how to look for them, then you can usually find them, and you can usually catch
Mm.
something.
Mm.
If you're just flailing around blindly and you never bother to memorize the spots, then it's going to be a lot trickier. So for me, because I've done so much work in theater and had, tight deadlines and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of not always been an option to just say, oh, okay, it's not happening today. Because
Mm.
sometimes it's just, no, it needs to happen now. I have 5 hours. And so this is not, so, so to me, it's kind of like, okay, so I need the map of the mine, and I need to go down there, and I need to dig and until I find something, and I can't stop until it's
Mm.
up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's like for me. But then, the motivation and the energy, that's a different story. That can be, of course, a deadline is a great motivator, but but it's kind of like, like, I mean, I think it's kind of, we're saying the same thing, but it's a little bit, because you're saying, once you have the deadline, then you just get going and you do it. And
Yeah.
then, and then I have those systems,
Yeah.
for
Exactly.
doing the mining,
Yeah.
that's where that comes in. But I'm never afraid to just, if I need, okay, I need a song now. There was a couple of weeks ago, I was like, oh, I had a week to, I have a week to come up with a song for this this thing I was doing. And so I was like, okay, I have no ideas. So I'm just, okay, so I'm pulling up this system that I have, and I'm doing this, and I'm setting it in front of me, and I'm doing it. And, it takes an hour, and then, I have a pretty good idea. And that's it. So I think that's totally true, and that's why I don't believe in writer's block. It's I think Charles Bukowski said that, he didn't understand writer's block. He said, if I don't feel like writing, if I don't know what to write about, then that's what I'll write about. Like, the writer's block is what I'll sit down and write about. So I love that. Are you familiar with The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's, that's like a mining thing for me, doing morning pages, which is, for those who are listening who don't know what that is, it's like a process. The Artist's Way is like a course in book form. And one of the things, and the main pillar of it, I guess, is every morning you write 3 pages, stream of consciousness, whatever comes into your head. And I don't do it constantly, but I do have like periods where I do them every day, and then I take time off. Again, it's an ebb and a flow, but I find myself being much more creative when I do it. It's great for the creativity. So that's a great tip for
Absolutely.
anybody out there who needs a spark of creativity. Just write 3 pages, longhand, stream of consciousness every morning, and it does boost your creativity.
It really does. It really does. And it allows you to get to know yourself and your own voice as well.
Yeah.
Free writing's brilliant. Absolute. It's one of the most powerful tools, I think, for creative people as well. Just depend on that page, set a timer or don't set a timer and just write. And exactly what you said about if you don't know what to write about the fact I don't know what to write about, and
Yeah, exactly.
eventually something comes. I really love your analogies, and I think for me, the fisherman and the miner, I think for me, my creativity is, I think I try and focus everything on the art of fishing and on
Yeah.
the act of mining as
Yeah.
opposed to the fish or the diamond at the end. And I think for a lot of folk coming into their creative self and finally taking their music a bit more seriously, I think it can be really easy to focus everything on the fish and on the diamond
Yeah.
and forget that the skilled fisherman has spent many a day in the boat with nothing at the end until
Yeah.
the time comes where that's very rare, and
Yeah.
it rarely is like that. But
And
yeah, the
process over
experience.
product, I think, is so. And I mean, I do a bit of fishing, uh, and the fish is besides the point.
That's it.
It's the
It's
joy
not the
of being in
trophy.
nature and having peace and quiet and
Mm,
not having your phone, and well, I mean, not staring at your phone anyway, and just being there. And
mm,
that's the joy of fishing.
mm-hmm.
Not, the fish is it, you probably release it anyway. It doesn't matter. It's the act of doing it. And I think that's what I learned in theater as well, because I studied theater directing. And one of the things that I was sort of, that some actors came to me and said, you need to focus on the process more than the product. And that I think is a great point that you made. It's more about that,
Absolutely, yeah. I agree. I totally
enjoying
agree.
it,
Yeah.
enjoying the journey.
Exactly, right. And I've just finished a series of workshops today, actually, all about how to finish your songs.
Yeah.
And the kind of the biggest takeaway I think that people get is, oh, this workshop's not really about finishing your song. It's about dedicating and committing to the process of finishing your song and saying, regardless of what I think or feel about this, I'm going to get to the end of it. And then
Yeah.
I can decide to be judgmental if I want.
Yeah.
But it's when, you just sit in the boat and you just start to, whatever it is. I don't fish, I'm a vegan, by the way. So,
Sorry.
but you put your tofu on the end of the reel or whatever you do.
Sure.
Like that part,
You catch
that's,
soy fish.
you
That's
catch
what we're. That's what. Yeah.
soy,
Yeah.
toefish. That's what it's called,
Toefish.
right? Toefish.
That sounds disgusting.
It's not nice. Yeah. Just eat tofu.
Sure.
Fish flavored tofu is a very interesting experience. I'm not going to lie, but yeah, it's about it, like exactly what you're saying. That being in nature, being there, being out in the lake,
Yeah.
experiencing it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really cheapened now. I think because of marketing and socialism. I did not mean to say socialism there. I meant to say social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oops, a little Freudian slip. I'm from Scotland.
Yay.
And but yeah, I think that's it, it's led us to believe that part is actually not worth anything. That's the cheap
Mm-hmm.
part. No, what you want to get to is the result. You want to get to the
Yeah.
end product, and that's not true. That's not important, really. I mean, it is important, right? I'm not saying writing good and great songs isn't important, or meeting your deadlines, or if you are a professional musician and professional songwriter like we are, you have to
Mm-hmm.
produce. You have
Yeah.
to be able to do what you say you can do. But at the same time, we also need to remind ourselves, don't we, that again, it's not all about that. That's not the only point. It's not always
No.
about pleasing the client. It's about being able to say, oh, I done something with my time on this planet today, and I
Yeah.
just feel so much better for it, or I know myself more, or I had an insight that I didn't have before. And it's your life's work.
Yeah.
Say folk who, some people get really hung up on, I don't make money from music, so I'm not a real musician. And I just actually released a podcast last week about professionalism and
Mm-hmm.
how You have paid people money before. We all have. They have done a really subpar, not professional job, and we don't call them professionals. And you can act and think and behave and become a professional, inverted commas, and it doesn't need to be about money. It can be about the experience that you offer yourself. I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to be prepared. You know, I'm going to make sure I'm warmed up. I'm going to learn those skills, you know, whatever that may be. And that's a really wonderful thing, because it makes you grow faster. And then when you do end up in a space where you've got to act to that deadline, you're going to get money and you're absolutely crapping your pants about it, you're still going to do it anyway because you've practiced it before. I think that's another really important part of it all. Is essentially what I'm saying is take yourself seriously.
Yeah.
Your music isn't stupid. Your music isn't silly. It's not just a little hobby. If you care about it, you are the only and first person who must take it seriously, with a small s, you know, having fun with it too. But I think that's a really important thing as well.
And going back to what you said before, you know, your self-talk kind of creates your reality.
Yeah.
And so I remember years ago when I first started using the word musician, when people asked me, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm a musician. And I was even getting paid. It wasn't a full-time thing, but I was certainly getting paid to write and perform music. And it was a step. And I actually, a friend of mine was like, you are a musician, stop it. And it did create a shift within me. And so I think doing that, and I'm all about, you know, those like positive affirmations and things like that. You know, you kind of create your reality by doing that, and not in the Secret kind of, you know, visualize it and it will come true. It's not that. It's just the way you talk to yourself. You know, there's a great exercise that I do with my clients, which is all about, you know, visualizing where you want to end up and what you want people to say about you at the end, and then turning that into first person affirmations. Like, this is who I am.
Absolutely.
And it is super powerful. And I use this stuff a lot, and it really, really works. And also, going back to what you said about taking it seriously, I think a big part of what I see artists and creatives get wrong, quote unquote. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but a mistake I think a lot of people make is to not treat this as a job. If you're treating it like a hobby, I mean, that's fine, but then that's all it'll ever be. And but the minute you start approaching it like, okay, I'm going to approach this with work ethic, and I'm going to show up and do the work, that's when I think you start to get somewhere, you know. And you need that consistency, and it makes you, you know, I always people always say, you know, quality over quantity. But to me, I write a lot of songs and I write them very fast. And to me, quantity creates quality, because the more I write, the better I get, I find. And, you know, throughout the years, I always feel like I'm getting better. You know, I look at the songs that I created 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I feel like I'm better now because I've just done it so much. And what do you I mean, do you have, for instance, a songwriting routine? Is that something that, you know, you do? Like, is there a you know, work mode that you have?
Yes, absolutely. There really is. I feel like I've sort of hacked what I need to create and to feel like I'm ready to go. I mean, procrastination is always going to be there. I think it's part of the creative's journey too.
Yeah.
But setting things up, setting a structure up, having a routine that essentially just makes it easier for me to step into a creation mode. So it's like everything is set up for it. Everything's ready to go. And also having those in place, those structures and routines in place for when it's not quite flowing right, when I do get a bit stuck on something, being able to say, okay, right, I can identify that, I don't know, let's say it's something to do with the arrangement. Okay, I've got an issue with this arrangement, it's just not quite hitting right. well, knowing that there's some other places I can go to just be able to get myself out of my own head, to, you know, even if it's something really simple, like I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to put it to bed, or I'm going to get some feedback on it, or I'm going to totally rearrange it as an exercise, not necessarily to finish the song, but just as an exercise to see what I can glean from that little creative space. Because when we do start employing, because it's those two, it's not really two parts of the brain, it's two functions of the brain, isn't it? Our executive function in line with all the creative stuff. When those two things are firing off at the same time, that's when you get the innovation and the ideas. Like, oh, I never thought about, you know, I don't know, whatever, doing that bass line that way or whatever it's going to be. So I do now, I definitely do have a lot, because similar to yourself, I'm under deadlines. I'm producing for people. I want to be able to offer other people my absolute best work as well. There's nothing worse than putting something out and going, I could have done better than that. That's a horrible experience. And I've done that before. And so I realized a good few years ago, okay, if I'm going to do this seriously, if I really, really want to be the best I can in wherever moment I am, then I have to set my environment up. I have to have a workflow. I can't be a riot. I can't be a mess, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm sure we all know folk who are like colleagues and other people in the industry that are just think differently and are a bit more chaotic, and that's absolutely fine. However, I do want to, just as a professional as well, and this is very personal to me, and I'm not saying that people need to be like this or not, I get a lot of value in knowing I'm there, I'm ready, I'm super prepared. I will never show up a hot mess, you know, and if I think that I might show up a hot mess, I'll reschedule. You know, it's like that's how important that is to me now. And I couldn't do the work I'm doing. I mean, you're probably really similar, but I have so many plates spinning at the same time, so many projects. I just literally, tomorrow actually, the doors close to my Songwriting Academy, my first ever online program. I've got so many moving parts with that, and also working as a producer, working on projects for other people. So you really do need to get, for me, I kind of like, I'm a captain of my ship, you know, and I'm really strict with my crew, and my crew being like my songwriting chops or my musicianship or my communication. So I do now. I spent many years without one. My years in London, my 5 years, I was in my 20s, but where I don't know how I got
back when
through
you didn't
that.
need to sleep.
Didn't sleep. I just, my blood was whiskey for 5 years. I played, I mean, I had an amazing experience there. I was a piano player full time, playing in all these really fancy 5-star hotels like Dorchester on Park Lane. I played in the House of Lords and played in all these really super posh places. Didn't open my mouth because I thought as soon as they know I'm from Glasgow, they're going to chuck me right out of here. But that was, I mean, for me, that was excellent for my musicianship, for sure. I got to play with so many good players, man. Like, and we were thrown into that. There was no prep. You just had, you were, oh, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Rosie. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's play a gig. You know, so, but that was a great experience. However, it ground me right down. I was, by the time I left London, I was pretty ill. My depression was really bad. And my anxiety was, I mean, I spent years after that trying to fix my adrenal glands. I was just totally fatigued. And it went on that recovery road and kind of had an evolution. And getting towards your 30s, it happens. It's just part of also being an artist, right? You got to live life to know what to write about too. And I realised that. I remember when I thought, right, I need to get my shit together, basically, and come at this with some kind of structure. And I'm so glad I did. But it's very much in my personality too, I think, as well. Quite organised, and I just like to know everything's in order. So yeah, but I do have systems and structures and just reams and reams of songwriting exercises and songwriting tasks and just little cool new avenues to take to explore. Just like you would if you're learning how to sing, you would practice your skills, but for songwriting, that kind of stuff, and for creativity in general. So like The Artist's Way, for example, that's a great one for anyone who's listening, who's not jumped in there.
I'll put a link to it in the show description because everybody should read that book. Every creative person that I know, I turn on to that book. It's fantastic.
Really, really good.
It's really good. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being here. Before we say goodbye, tell people where they can find you and your stuff and all the different places where you hang out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me as well. It's been fantastic. I really enjoyed chatting with you today. And it's great to hear other people talking about music and talking about songwriting in a similar way. It's beautiful. So thank you. You can find me, my own music at rosiebans.com. Everything Rosie Bans that you want in your life, you'll find on that website. And it is suitable for work, by the way. That sounded dirtier than it was meant to sound. And for all my songwriting stuff, if you are a songwriter and you're looking for any support, that's all at beradicalmakemusic.com. So that's beradicalmakemusic, because making music and being creative in this modern 21st century is a really radical thing to do with your life. So Be Radical, Make Music. Come and say hello.
Awesome. And there will be links, of course, to all of those things. Well, thanks so much, and talk soon.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Bye. This has been the Strongwriting Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to visit strongwriting.net for tons of free songwriting resources. My name is Eyvindur Karlsson, and I wish you happy songwriting. Bye-bye.